Olympus has just launched a new camera, Olympus OMD E-M10 MKIV, and this is my first impression of just launched camera. Hi there, my name is Forsgård and I am an Olympus visionary and a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And before we start talking about this camera, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit that bell so you get notified when there is a new video online. My channel is all about you getting to be a better photographer and of course about Olympus gear. But let's start to talk about this camera. I have had a chance to test this camera for a few days before it was launched, so thank you Olympus Finland for letting me test this new camera. This first impression is based on firmware 1.0 and it says sample on the back, but most likely this is exactly the way it's going to be on the market by the end of this month. But before we get into the specs and image quality and all that, let's look what the camera looks like. And when you're looking at it like this, you don't really see any big differences to the previous model. The small changes are that the dials on the top has this black color on them. The E-M10 MKIII, they were all silver. And the size is almost the same. The only difference that you can actually see is that the Mark IV is here in the front and not on the top of the camera. And it's slightly higher or taller than the E-M10 MKIII, and I will tell you why that is a good thing. And then the screen is this tilting screen, and what's really interesting is that it will be as a selfie screen, so it folds under the camera, and that's really good because I really like the tilt screen. I like it even better than the do you call it articulating screen. For photography this is better in my opinion. For video, yeah, the flip articulating or the flip, or what do you call it, flip out screen is a bit better. When I heard that they are making the new camera E-M10 MKIV, I was thinking that what could they add to the specs to the previous one so that it won't compete with the E-M5 MKIII. And there are actually two things that I really like about this, and I will get back to those after we look at some specs of this camera. As you saw, the new camera has a 20 megapixel sensor. Now all new OMD cameras have a 20 megapixel sensor. The processor is TruePic 8, so when we talk about the image quality, you will see that there is not much of a difference between the E-M5 MKIII and this one because they have the same sensor and the same processor. But we'll talk more about the image quality later in this video. The IBIS on this one is 5-axis and it's 4.5 stops, so it's pretty good. It's half a stop better than the previous model. And having a good and really reliable IBIS on a camera makes the photographing a lot easier because long shutter speeds are no problem with very effective IBIS, and that's something that Olympus has always had, really good IBIS. Other good new features are USB charging, and you can use only Bluetooth to use the remote shutter on OI Share app. I did not have time to test it, or I would have had time, but the app was not available for me yet, but that's a really good thing. You don't need Wi-Fi to use the remote shutter from OI Share. And there's also a upgrade to OI Share that it will have so-called night mode, so the color of the screen is red, so it won't interfere your night vision, so-called, because red light doesn't affect it. And then you can use radio controlled flash with this camera. That's also a good, if you have the radio controlled Olympus flashes, then you can use this to trigger those and have some better lighting on your portraits. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And the E-M10 MKIV also shoots 4K video, but it doesn't have a mic jack or headphone jack, so that's a bit of a downside. I think microphone jack should be on any camera that shoots 4K video, or video in that matter, because it's not a big deal to have it and it makes the sound quality a lot better. But of course you can use an external sound recorder, but being an entry-level camera, I think it's a bit of an overkill to get a few €100 external recorder for it. So I would really like that Olympus puts the mic jack on future cameras, because It's so much better. It's because the mics on these cameras, they're just not good, no good. They are good for reference sound, but that's it. You can't really use it for real video. So put the mic jack in. Headphone jack, okay, we can live without that, but mic jack, that's important. And like other E-M10 system cameras, it has a scene mode. There are lots of different scenes that you can choose from, but there is one really interesting. That's the new panorama mode. The way it works, you turn it on and then you start panning with the camera. The camera will record the panorama shot, and you can choose the direction by pressing the arrow button. And then you can also use 360 panoramas if you want. You just choose it from the screen. And that's really good, because the old version of panorama that Olympus had was no good. You took separate images, and then you had to use Olympus Workspace to stitch them together, and you needed to use the panorama mode in order for the workspace to understand that this is a panorama, and that was no good. But this one is a lot better, and I think it's a good feature because I like panorama photographs quite a lot, and it can actually make your lens a bit wider. You can make panorama shots in when you're traveling or stuff like that, and then you can kind of like make your lens wider and get some more interesting images, like this one, for example, from the place that I'm right now. But then the two things that I like most about this camera. One is the much improved continuous autofocus. It has the same algorithm as the newest E-M1 system cameras. And that's huge, because it hasn't been really good in the past with the E-M10 system cameras. But now the tracking is a lot better, or the continuous autofocus is a lot better. And that includes face priority and eye priority. It's improved a lot. And when I used it, it works really good. So that's a really important thing, even though continuous autofocus is not something that I use quite a lot, but having a top-notch CAF is still an important thing, because when you need it, you want it to be really good. And I'm really glad that they did not cripple this camera and use the old system, but now it has the same algorithm that the newest E-M1 system cameras. Very good, very good. Then the second thing that I like the most is the design, and there is small little thing that has made this camera so much better to use. It's the grip. There is a slight, I don't know what you call this, it goes in a bit, so it's a lot better for your hand. You have a place for your finger to rest, and this makes it a very good camera out of the box. The look and feel, it's remarkable how a small thing can make a really big difference on how to use it and how it feels in your hand. And that's really good thing, and I'm really glad that Olympus made this a bit better, because for me, I haven't really used the E-M10 series cameras because of that. But now this one is a lot better to use. That's a good but small improvement that makes the camera a lot easier or more fun to use. And what about the image quality? As I said in the beginning, it has the same processor, the same sensor as E-M5 Mark III, so the image quality should be similar. And it is. And here are some sample images that I had time to make with this combination. I had the kit zoom, the 14 to 42 millimeter electronic kit zoom lens on it, and used JPEG, out of the box JPEGs, which I never do, but now I did. And here are the results. The only thing that I did was a bit of adding contrast and some saturation, because that's the way I like the images to be. But otherwise, the images were straight out of camera. And the image quality, nothing wrong with the image quality as I expected. And then the conclusion. And I think Olympus has made some really good improvements to the previous model, because I think they made a big mistake that they crippled some of the things in E-M10 Mark III versus the E-M10 Mark II, because I think the E-M10 Mark II is a better camera than E-M10 Mark III for most. And that's why I'm really glad that they went back and made this camera more usable. For example, silent shutter can be used with any exposure mode. And that's a good thing, because if you're, photographing your kids' concert, for example, playing the violin, and then you have this, then you can use the silent shutter on any exposure mode, which makes the camera more usable. That's a good thing. USB charging is really good. The panorama mode in these scene modes is really good, even though otherwise I don't really use the scene modes, but the panorama mode is one thing that what I really like. And then of course the CAF algorithm, that is a lot better, and which feels to be a minor thing, which is a big thing, is the better designed grip for better hold. So it's out of the box. It's actually better out of the box than E-M5 Mark III in my hand. So in the E-M5 Mark III I needed to have the extra grip, but this one doesn't need it. And that's where the a bit higher comes into hand. It feels so much better in my hand. When I used this for a couple of days, that it even made me think that could this camera replace my favorite camera for now for everyday shooting, E-M5 Mark III. And to be honest, it could, for a few reasons. And the biggest reason is the grip. It's a smaller package. And then I like the tilting screen better than the screen that E-M5 Mark III has. So could this be, and I also used it with, I have it here, with the 12 to 45 millimeter f4 zoom that was introduced I think it was last fall. And like this is a very balanced and very good to hold combination. And to be honest, this could be my favorite go-to camera. I'm not really sure yet. I need to use it a bit more and see how the performance really is when you're using it for a long term. If there is anything that starts make me change my mind back. But for now, I think this could be, this combination could be my, can you see it there? This could be my go-to camera for now on, but we will see. And also when we consider the price, that's $699 body only, and let me check so I say it right, $845 with the kit lens, and that's a really good deal. But all in all, I think Olympus made some really good improvements to this camera, and I'm glad that I was wrong, because I was a bit worried that what could they do, but they did the right things. Well, let's see that they go into the right direction with this E-M10 system cameras. The other thing that Olympus launched was the 100 and 400 millimeter lens, and there's a video about that too. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.